That's better. Okay. So, ayashmasu. So today is chapter 15, Training with Water. It's a very short chapter, of course, and we can go over what we do here on Maui, but I wanted to read a section out of O Sensei's biography, which was written by John Stevens. It states Misogi, ritual purification. The custom of washing away impurities with cold water dates back to the dawn of Japanese consciousness. Contact with dirt and dust of this imperfect world stains one's original pristine nature. Misogi purifies one of all the accumulated defilements and restores one's link to sacred being. There is external misogi, rinsing off the body with cold water, and internal misogi, cleansing the inner organs with deep, regenerating breaths. After performing misogi properly, you enter a state of sumikiri, crystal clarity of body and mind. In this condition, your heart is as bright and clear as a cloudless sky, untainted by base passions and worldly concerns. Crystal clear, sharp and bright, my mind has no opening for evil to roost. The morning sun shines in my mind, too, clear and bright. From my window, I let myself soar to the high heaven and bathe in the divine light. So, Osensei concluded this poem that I just read, stating Aikido is Misogi, purification of body and mind, a way to reform and transform the world. Giving this advice, daily training in Aikido allows your inner divinity to shine brighter and brighter. Do not concern yourself with the right and wrong of others. Keep the mind bright and clear as the endless sky, the deepest ocean, and the highest mountain. Do not be calculating or act unnaturally. Keep your mind set on Aikido. And do not criticize other teachers or traditions. Aikido never restrains, restricts, or shackles anything. It embraces all and purifies everything. Rely on Aiki to activate your manifold powers, pacify all things, and create a beautiful world. I thought that was nice. John Stevens has written a lot on Aikido and O Sensei. And some of his stuff is a bit interesting, but he did. I earlier in our discussions, I discussed that he did write Sword of No Sword, which is the biography of Yamoka Teshu, which is actually my favorite book that John Stevens has ever written. Uh, yeah, so I just wanted to cover that. In Maui, we did not do Misogi this year because of the COVID protocol. Um, but normally we would meet on the very first Sunday of the year out at one of the beaches nearby, and we would, Sensei would bring us out there. We'd do some Aiki Taiso. Actually, we'd do 3-minute exercises, and then he would gather us all in a circle and give a little discussion about the new year and what it means to start the year by Misogi. And then he would do Kirei Kibarai, and then we'd all walk into the ocean, dunk 3 times, and then come out, and then he would give a Kirei Kibarai to the end, and then we go back to our dojo, and then we would do Sokushin no Gyo Bel Misogi, and then afterwards with that we'd usually have some sort of potluck at somebody's house where everyone would gather the first Sunday, and just kind of as a get together after the holidays, since the dojo had been closed for the Christmas break. That's usually three weeks, something like that, and that was kind of our first get together of the year. Yeah, this is something that Curtis Sensei did in Maui. Suzuki Sensei never did it in Maui because he said the water was too warm. Because he was used to doing it in Japan, and when he went to Japan, in Tochigi, they would go out to the river the big river. There's a big river. You cross over that bridge going into headquarters. There's a big river, and they would go to this big river. Everyone would gather, and they would wear their gis and do exercises and do a little run, and then go into the water, and then go back, and then. For some of you who've been to headquarters, they used to have a pond there that they would do it there. And I know that's where Sayaka said that she did it. And I remember, I can't remember the complete story, but I remember Suzuki Sensei saying that one time they didn't do it in the river, they did it near Toy Sensei's house in a little river, and there were snakes in the river, and it freaked him out, and he did not like that kind of Misogi at all. Um, but he always used to get a kick out of it. He'd say, "Oh, the water's too warm. You got to go where it's really cold. It's got to be cold." Kind of like the polar bear club, that we see in the Midwest and what have you. And I know we had that in college, a group of people that would go out and break the ice and go in. And, every year, Igor from Russia would send Sensei pictures of them out breaking the ice and going in the water and coming out. That was a big thing for them as well. And when I was in Arizona, we used to do the same thing. And, you think Arizona's all warm and stuff, but in the wintertime, it snows in Flagstaff. And the snow melts off that mountain and comes down into the rivers. And the rivers get pretty darn cold in Arizona, I'm telling you. And we used to go out, and Follower Sensei would do a big ritual with water misogi. And it's very prominent in the Key Society. Not so much in the Aikikai, I don't believe. But the Key Society really took this to, a ritualistic level, of basically doing it annually. And I remember, I can't remember who it was, but, people used to uh, would take a bucket of water and they'd fill it up at night and put it in their shower, right? And then I heard somebody tell me this. I think it was this gentleman Matthew, who used to be a ushideshi for Kashiwaya in Colorado, and he said, yeah, and Kashiwaya Sensei told me to put a bucket of water in my shower, fill it up the night before, and then the next morning douse yourself in the shower 3 times, and so I said, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. Let me tell you, that even in at room temperature, the water gets darn cold in the shower just sitting there. That stagnant water gets pretty chilly. So I did that for a few years in Arizona, and then, decided that, yeah, not my thing. But that's my limited knowledge of Misogi for water Misogi. And there's all kinds. Misogi means purification. And I remember, some person, I was at an Aikikai seminar, and a person said, "Oh, you do Misogi breathing," and I went, "What? Misogi breathing?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "Well, what is it? What is it? Do you think Misogi breathing is?" And he said, "Oh yeah, you do really loud." And that's, we call that key breathing. But they had this understanding that was called Misogi breathing, that you're purifying your organs by doing deep breathing. And I thought that was very interesting. I said, no, 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 that's just a way that we unify mind and body. That's just Toy Sensei's breathing practice that he learned outside of Aikido. So there's a lot of people have thoughts and misunderstandings, when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I'd like to open it up and see what do. You guys practice Misogi? What are your thoughts on this? How about Alaria? Do Misogi up in Seattle?
Yeah, hi,
In what?
yeah, I went twice for Miki. So we would meet, I think, on like the first Saturday of the new year. And so we would like go, it was like at a beach park. So we would, in Seattle, so we would go in the restrooms, change into our gis, run like a couple laps around together. Um, and then strip down, go out in the water, and then we would like hold hands in a big circle and jump up and down in ki for maybe a minute or two and then get out. You have to make sure that you're healthy and not at all sick because, and which I was, but still, like, I felt fine until I got into the warm car, and then once I got in the warm car, I couldn't stop shivering. So there was that. Yeah.
Right.
And then one time I went camping last summer and I jumped in the icy river off a waterfall in the morning on the shaded river before the sun came. So it was really cold. And it made me super positive for the rest of the day. Like it felt amazing.
Right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is something to say about that. I mean, if you can, you think about it, and I know growing up in Michigan, and it would snow a lot there. I mean, and you get into the cold, cold weather, and when you come in and you feel that warmth, you're like, oh wow, I feel really good. It has some sort of effect on your body to where that alternating of temperatures, really is beneficial, for sure. So, anyone else, Gloria?
Um, we don't do Misogi at the beginning of every year because we are very close to an apartment building and we don't think they would appreciate it a whole lot. But a number of years ago, before the big split in the what was then the Key Federation, or I guess of Oahu, um, Naipo Sensei, who taught in Kaneohe, and Nalawai Sensei would get together and bring people, and we would go out to a beach, and I'm not sure which one it was. It was somewhere out on the end where Irma's beach is, but I'm not sure it was that one. Uh, and we would um, sit in the sand and do Misogi for about half an hour. And then we would strip down to our bathing suits, go into the water, which wasn't, of course, really cold, but just get in it, you know. And basically, then we would go home. I'm no party or anything like that, but we would have to go out to Mililani or someplace where they have enough space to do Misogi without it, causing a real problem for people around. Um, I do recall that one time when Nalva Sensei came up with what he called key weekends or the key experience. And it was a weekend at Camp Olomana, which is fairly rustic. And there is no hot water out there. And so when you took a shower in the morning, it was a cold shower. And when I first started Aikido, Nalawai Sensei had one of the things we were supposed to do was take a cold shower every day. Uh, and after he quit doing that after a while, or telling us we needed to do that. But for the first year or so, we were supposed to take a cold shower, at least in beginner's class. And so I was being Otomo for Naipo Sensei, and so he and Nalawai Sensei were sitting together. They were the two teachers, and Nalawai Sensei said, "I had a warm shower this morning. The water was hot." And Naipo Sensei looked at me and winked, and he said he lies a lot because everybody had cold water, but uh, it was no. If you want it to be warm, it will be warm. And he was shocked one time in New York when he and his wife were visiting someone, and he went into the bathroom and he came out and he said, "The water here is really cold." So it was winter when they were there, but he would take a cold shower, I think, for many years before he probably gave it up. But it was really important at one point that you do that and sort of kind of stop being done. And
Thanks. That's interesting. How about you, Vitali? Do you guys in your area of
Uh, Hello, Sensei. Hello, everyone. I one of those guys who break the ice and do misogi. It usually this tradition it's a baptismal Christian Orthodox tradition. It's happens usually in January. The outside temperature is about minus 20 centigrade outside, and the temperature of water is about 4 or 3 or 2 centigrade. So it's it's quite cool, but it's very very emotional. there are many people who do this tradition. And this day are usually queues for this holes in the ice to do this. If you want to perform this tradition, you have to wait in the queue while you be able to do this. We do this every year, and it's very good and emotional. What about me? Um, in the regular days, I do shower in the morning. It's what me after I'm washing in hot water, I switch to cold and stay about 1.5 minutes to have some energy. What that's all about what I'm looking for me and my country.
Yeah. That's good. So does your dojo do the event for when you break the ice and all that kind of stuff? Is it
Um, and it is not Aikido practice. Aikido practice. We do it in Christian, like an Orthodox Christian tradition, and we didn't do it in dojo. We do it outside, not included in our Aikido practice. It's independent of.
right? Right. Oh, interesting. That's a lot of cultures that have that. I think it's like anything else. I mean, in the Midwest, they have the Polar Bear Club, and they do it they usually do it like when it's safe to go out on the ice, when it's actually, they'll go out and they'll test the ice. And, in the Midwest, there's lots of lakes, so people are always fishing. They go out there and they drill a hole and make a hole and they fish, in an ice shanty in the Midwest. So yeah, that's something that's in all cultures, I suppose. That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing. That's really interesting. So, anyone else? Lillian, I know you have your camera on, so you're safe to talk.
I'm safe for a moment. They went from eating to playing. So, um, man, if I had been told as a beginner that I needed to take a cold shower in the beginning, I don't know if I would have stayed in Aikido. My very favorite thing to do in Japan is to go to Ofuro or Rotenburo. I love onsen. I love hot water. My family laughs at me because when we go to the beach in Hawaii, I'm always saying, "Oh, the water's so cold," you know. So my only real experience with Misogi has been at camp, and of course, when we went, you went into where you changed into your bathing suit, and they had the well, and you had to dip the bucket in and throw it over your shoulders, several times. And yes, it was invigorating, and yes, I got the point. Would I want to do that every day? I have to admit, I would do it maybe ritually, but I am not a cold water person, so I have a real hard time with that. And in fact, I used to laugh because Nonaka Sensei, Senior Takashi Nonaka Sensei, used to say before we go to Japan, there's a real trick to this to do it correctly. Make sure when you take that water and you throw it far enough over your shoulder to hit 3 guys behind you. So I kind of like that idea, but I understand the concept having done it. But probably not my favorite of the Aikido practices. Being said,
I totally understand. Yeah, across the street from headquarters, they had that little well area, and they had a men's changing room and a women's changing room, and you would go in there, and that's kind of what they did for seminars. And you'd put on your bathing suit, and then you go stand in line, and I'm telling you, you're exactly right. People would not throw it on themselves. They're throwing it over their shoulder and hitting people. I mean, I've gotten that kind of treatment quite a few times. And what's so funny is always the Russians were always last, and they would always just sit out there and just pour water like it was no big deal, like they were bathing in it. You know, they're so used to the cold. It was quite humorous. Yeah, and unfortunately, the last few times I remember, when we first there was no age limit, and then they put an age limit and said, "Oh, if you're over this age, you're not allowed to do this anymore," because they'd had an incident where somebody had a heart attack, doing it, kind of shocked their system so much.
That sounds
But
good to me.
it's good to hear, right? Uh, so, how about you, Sasaki Sensei? Do you have any stories about Misogi, water Misogi?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I wasn't required to do it. I took a lot of photos, but I didn't do it at all. At the time, I can only remember being in the camp once in summer, and the rest was all late autumn, so it was really cold. Really say I never had to do the water in Japan.
Right. Anybody else have any comments? Fincher.
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everyone. We do, as you mentioned, do it here in Maui, and it's sort of a beach event, but it's a bit challenging because we go there very early in the morning. I think we get there, we leave the dojo at maybe 5:45 or 6 o'clock or something like that. So I think more than it's not too challenging as far as water temperature goes, but it's a ritual, which I really appreciate, and it's something you don't do every day. And so, as a group, we do it together, and then we go back to the dojo and we do the bell ringing Misogi, um, which is also one of the first of the year events. And I think that just doing this unusual and sort of challenging event, even though it's not challenging, maybe water temperature, it's pretty cool for us. But I think what I appreciate is just the sharing of this unusual event once a year, and we go back to the dojo and we perform the sogi, it seems to be, I don't know, I'm really satisfied after this. And you feel that you've done it with, it's a special event with special people. It's what I feel after the event. It's not unusual simply to Aikido, but I think as far as an event goes, like if you were going to jump in the ice, certainly that's going to be an event that you share with special people and special events. So even though we're not challenged as much as in Russia or other places, I think as far as an event and something you do once a year, I think it's still pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those group exercises that, it really gets the group together, and you get the positive energy with everyone. And yeah, those cannot be underestimated. They're actually really, really beneficial for everyone. And like Vitaly said, these kinds of events can be very emotional and set your mind in a right space. How about you, John?
So I've never done misogi on Maui. The only place I've done it is in Japan. And the only reason
Oh,
why I don't do the misogi here on Maui is because I have Sunday services. So usually I've got something going on that morning, so I'm unavailable. Yeah, but I join after.
tell me about your Japanese experience.
It was nice. I enjoy actually a cold shower. I'll go up to EL Valley and jump in the water, and basically it's ice cold, and I'll just like bathe in it for like a couple minutes, go out, dry off, and then jump in again. Kind of like my own water misogi.
Mhm.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
I know
very cold
David
though.
have yeah, David Heva had a spot in EOW that he would go to, and he kind of showed me. He goes, "Oh yeah, this is where I go on Sundays after practice. I'll go here and I'll dunk myself in the water. I really like it. He really enjoyed getting into EOW and when it was really cold, especially in the wintertime here. Yeah. How about you, Kaomi?
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everybody. Um, Cold weather never really agrees with my body, so I, I, I would like to experience it if there is a misogi in Hawaii. I think that I like to try, but I even get cold in Hawaii. I have to wear socks a lot during the winter time. So it will require a lot of courage. But I do um, understand that cold temperature, water, and snow are very purifying. Only thing I liked to do in Japan in cold weather was I used to go hiking in winter with a full gear though. But then when you wake up in the morning, at least like a face, you cannot cover everything, then I can feel the very crisp air, and it's all white, and not many people are there, and I felt um, very cleansing. And even though it was hard to hike up, but then I felt very good. And then I get very positive feelings after that. So that's the closest uh, experience I can relate to. But it takes a lot of courage for me to go to cold river in winter time. In my hometown, there is a festival in February. All the It's called Hadaka Matsuri, which is like naked. The man become naked, and they carry shrines in February with bare feet in the snow, and people come to watch. But and then because they have a lot of mobilities, its steam comes out from their bodies, and they're quite spectacular. And it's about I think celebrating yakudoshi uh, for 42 years old for man. And I watched one time, and I thought, oh, I don't think I would never be able to do it. But I think obviously it was very uh, cleansing, and giving yaku to everybody instead of getting one, like bad luck. Or so I see the association with the purification with cold weather.
Nice. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, very good. How about any of the people that don't have videos on? Any comments, questions, concerns? I know this was a really short chapter, so there's not much, to expound on, like the other chapters. And, I think doing group exercise like Fincher was talking about and the camaraderie build is really important aspect of Aikido. I know soon, hopefully, we'll be getting back into the dojos and training again. I know some people are training and some people are not at all. So I know I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, that's. I don't have anything else to discuss. I don't know if you were able to look at the chat. Curtis Sensei made an announcement that Kubiyama Sensei passed away in Kauai, and uh, Richard Kubiyama was a long time practicer of Aikido, and I didn't know him that well. I do have one story to tell about him. Um, he was a very nice man. He was a former head instructor of 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 the Kauai of the island, and yeah, just a really nice man. I remember seeing him at the last seminar we had in Kauai. He was super super nice. But my story is so I had just moved to Maui, and I was shortly after arriving, Curtis, since I said, "Oh, I want you to be the treasurer of Hawaii Key Federation. I want you to take over for Gary Nita, who's got other work commitments and can't come to all the meetings, and the meetings are on Friday." So I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, Sensei, I'll take over being the treasurer." And we had a seminar on Kauai. And so, of course, I'm there as Curtis Sensei's Otomo, as well as the Hawaii Key Federation treasurer. And, we would have these lunch meetings. We'd usually go to a restaurant and have lunch and have a meeting. And of course, as a treasurer, I'm responsible for paying for the lunch. So I was, we had this lunch. We had everybody, we have dojo reports. Everything's going on. It's very busy, and I think Curtis Sensei and Suzuki Sensei were both there. So I'm also the driver of the vehicle that they're in. So I've got lots of duties to do, and when I'm telling you, when Suzuki Sensei or Curtis Sensei wanted to go, there's no, "Oh, can you give me 5 minutes?" It's you go. It's time to go. It's time to go. So you got to have that all planned out ahead of time. Like, when you're a Tomo, you got to have, you got to know the check is paid. You got to know everything's in order. So when he wants to leave, you leave. Well, of course, I was not that astute. And so suddenly Curtis Sensei looks at me and goes, "Suzuki Sensei wants to go. Let's go." So I go, "Okay, Sensei, come on, let's go." And I leave and go to the hotel. Don't think anything about it. Friday night's class come along, and I'm getting dressed in the room, helping Sensei get dressed. I come out in the locker room and I'm on the mat, just kind of chatting with everybody, and then finally I get a excuse me, and Kubiyama Sensei was off the mat, and he waves me over, and "Oh yes, Sensei, how can I help you? What's going on?" You didn't pay the bill at the restaurant, and I had to pay it for you. And I went, "Oh shit." "I am so sorry. Let me write you a check." And I wrote him a check for the Hawaii Key Federation and gave it to him. But you know what? He didn't make a big deal about it. He didn't tell. I don't think he told anybody else about it. He just kind of came to me off to the side and said, "You didn't pay the lunch bill. I paid it for you." And I was like, totally just shattered my image of being a really good Otomo at that point, because I was doing a good job up to that point. I even thought, wow, I'm doing such a good job. I was really congratulating myself on what a good job I was doing. And for him just to go, he was such a kind little old man. Excuse me, could you come over here? It was just priceless. That's my story about Kumiyama Sensei. What a great man he was. Very understated, very nice man. I don't know, Sasaki Sensei, do you have any stories about Kumiyama Sensei?
Like you, I really didn't know him that well, but it's very true. He is a really nice guy. And the one thing that stood out for some of our students was that I think they had to room with him. And I can't remember if he had gone to Japan at that time, but they used to speculate about his toupee. And I thought, you guys are terrible. But it's stories that guys have, like how loud everybody snores or all these little small things. But hey, I just know him as a really nice guy.
Really nice man, that's true. Oh, Fincher, what's going on there?
Yeah, Sensei, I have a short story about Kubayama Sensei. I was on Kauai for some reason and had gone down to his dojo to train, and he was still teaching at that time. But he was still, he was pretty old, and couldn't move physically that well. So when he was doing arts, they weren't quite the way he used to move, I'm sure. And so I just noticed, oh, he's kind of, he's not quite on top of his arts. But then part of the class was when we did kin. And I'll tell you, you put a sword in this man's hands and he just transformed. I was just amazed. The way he moved, the way he cut with that sword was impressive. And I was just really struck with the change of presence that Sensei had when he started moving with that kin in his hand. And then later I understood that he had his own dojo. And that was one of his loves, was he actually trained with a true samurai sword from time to time, from what I was told. But I didn't know that at the time, but it was just so impressive how it actually changed him when he picked up the sword. So I really remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a super guy. He was 93 when he passed away, so lived a very good, long life. How about you, Lillian? Do you have any stories or about Kumiyama Sensei?
I also didn't get a chance to talk with him a lot, but when I did, he was just so, like everybody says, so sweet, so gentle, so kind. And I think the first time I met him was at an HKF meeting. I'm pretty sure that's the first time I met him. And we went to, I think it was the golf course. And we had bento up at some benches up at the top. And actually, what was funny about that meeting was Sensei Dean Mayer was down in the lower area showing us where to go. And I didn't even know Dean Mayer back then. And I told my husband, go over there and ask that gardener where we're supposed to go. And it was Mayer Sensei, and then we went up and we found the spot. And I've had a couple quiet, beautiful conversations with them, but nothing, that I could share, aside from that. So thanks.
What about you, Gloria? Did you have any encounters with Kumiyama Sensei?
I never met him, so have nothing to say.
Yeah, he was retired, and I know when I came, he was retired, pretty much semi-retired. Didn't participate much, but he was a good part of the organization and followed Curtis Sensei after he, started the Hawaii Key Federation, and that's always, very thankful to have that kind of individual in the group. Well, I do have an ending story, and it's quite, I believe, quite appropriate in a sense of talking about rituals. When the spiritual teacher and his disciples began their evening meditations, the cat who lived in the monastery was always getting into mischief and making lots of noise. So the teacher ordered the cat to be tied up during the evening practice. Years later, when the teacher died, the cat continued to be tied up during the meditation session. And when the cat eventually died, another cat was brought to the monastery and also tied up. Centuries later, learned descendants of the spiritual teacher wrote a scholarly treatise about the religious significance of tying up a cat for meditation practice. So with that, I'll bid you adieu and have a good week, and hope to see you on Wednesday. And next Monday, just a reminder, we're doing a little celebration for Suzuki Sensei. Also on Sunday, there'll be a little celebration for Suzuki Sensei that Curtis Sensei will hold. All right, thank you very much. Domo arigatou gozaimashita, and have a good week.